The phone rang while Evelyn Harper was elbow-deep in the rosebed, the late August sun pouring gold over the Napa hills like warm syrup. She wiped her hands on the frayed hem of Tom's old Levi's, saw Jack, son, on the cracked screen, and smiled the way she had since he was 6 and lost his first tooth in a grape crate. "Mom," he said, voice flat and fast, the way people talk when they've rehearsed cruelty. "We're selling the cottage and the Mustang. Got buyers lined up. Need the cash for the LA thing. Flights tomorrow. Bye." The line went dead. Evelyn stood among the roses, secateurs dangling, petals bleeding red at her feet. 45 years of scraped knees and bedtime stories, of teaching him to shift gears in that cherry red 65 convertible, of watching him chase fireflies on this very porch, and he'd hung up like she was a wrong number. She was 71, widowed 6 months, and until that moment, she thought she knew her son. She didn't cry. She clipped one last rose, laid it on the small stone under the olive tree where Tom rested, and went inside. The cottage smelled of cedar and coffee grounds. On the kitchen table sat a manila envelope, thick, sealed, Tom's blocky teacher handwriting on the front. "Evelyn, open when you're ready, not before." She'd found it 3 days after the funeral, tucked between folded boxers and a Polaroid of her in a yellow bikini, 1982. Grief is a thief. It steals time. The envelope had slipped her mind. Until now. Dr. Patel's office smelled of bleach and eucalyptus. "Healthy as a horse," he said, peering over bifocals. "Rest, eat greens, maybe a grief group." Evelyn nodded, but her mind was on the envelope, on Jack's voice, on the way he'd said the LA thing like it was a done deal, not a betrayal. She took the bus home, no Mustang anymore, sat in the back, watched vineyards blur past like green ocean waves. Napa in late summer, grapes heavy as sin, air thick with yeast and promise. She smiled out the window, small and secret. Tom had always been a planner. She slit the envelope with the olive wood letter opener he'd carved the year Jack learned how to ride a bike. Inside, a letter, a flash drive, a key on a red ribbon, legal papers thick as the Napa phone book. "My dearest Ev, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Forgive the secrecy. I never wanted you to worry about money, or for Jack to love us for what we have instead of who we are. We don't just have the cottage. We have 7 vineyards, a winery in San Helena, a tasting room in Yountville, shares in 3 co-ops. The cottage land? Zoned for expansion, appraised at $4.2 million. The Mustang? Insured for $180,000, classic value. I started buying distressed plots in the 80s, flipped them, reinvested, kept it quiet. You hated bookkeeping. Jack, well, you know. The key opens box 212 at First Napa Bank. Everything's in a trust, Harper Family Legacy, LLC. You're the sole trustee. Jack gets nothing unless he earns it. Literally, there's a clause. I love you. I love our boy. But love isn't blind. It's patient. It's clever. It waits. Use this wisely. Teach him what the land taught us. Nothing grows without roots. Forever, Tom. Evelyn's hands shook. She plugged the flash drive into Tom's ancient Dell. Files opened like treasure chests. Deeds to 120 acres of prime Cabernet. A lease for Harper & Sons Winery, grossing $2.8 million annually. Bank statements with $6.4 million liquid. A photo of Tom at 50, arms wide in a vineyard at sunset, grinning like he'd won the lottery. He had. Jack called the next morning, voice syrupy. "Mom, deposited your share. $92,000. Not much, but it'll tide you over. Cottage sold for 1.1, needed work. Mustang went for $45K, you're set. Gotta go, flight to LAX. Your share." As if she were a stranger. Evelyn poured coffee, watched steam curl like vineyard mist. "Okay, honey, safe travels." She hung up, laughed once, sharp, surprised, and called Tom's lawyer, Margaret Cho. "Mrs. Harper, I've been waiting." Tom left instructions, discreet, ironclad. "What do you need?" "Time," Evelyn said. and a performance. She sold the act like a method actor, wore Tom's old flannel shirts, let her hair go gray at the roots, took the bus to the St. Helena Farmers Market, bought dented tomatoes, haggled over zucchini. Neighbors clucked. Poor Evelyn. Jack left her high and dry. Heard he's in LA, crypto, wine, NFTs or something. She smiled, nodded, accepted casseroles. Inside, she was a general. Margaret worked quietly, nullified the cottage sale, forged power of attorney, Jack had tricked Evelyn into signing funeral papers months ago, traced the Mustang to a collector in Sonoma, bought it back for $50K cash, parked it in a barn under a tarp, froze Harper & Sons accounts. Jack thought he'd inherited a stake. He hadn't. Los Angeles, October. Jack Harper, 38, wore Italian loafers and a grin sharp as a switchblade. His startup, Vine Chain, promised blockchain-authenticated Napa wines. Investors loved the pitch. He leased a WeWork in Culver City, hired models for photo shoots, flew first class. The cottage money, $1.1 million, vanished in 3 months. $300K on a leased Lamborghini, crashed in Malibu, $200K on a condo deposit, lost when the deal fell through, $400K on marketing, mostly bottle service at Hyde. By December, Vine Chain was a ghost. Investors sued, the Lamborghini repoed, Jack moved into a Koreatown studio with a futon and a dream. He called Evelyn from a payphone. "Mom, I messed up. Can I come home?" She let the silence stretch. "Of course, honey. The cottage is gone, but the sofa's yours." Jack arrived in Napa on a Greyhound, duffel bag slung over a $3,000 jacket, now pilled and sad. Evelyn met him at the station in a borrowed Corolla, hair in a messy bun, no makeup. The house he expected? Gone. In its place, a 400-square-foot studio behind the hardware store. Evelyn had rented it for $1,200 a month, paid cash. "You sold our cottage?" Jack's voice cracked. "You did, sweetheart. I'm just making do." The studio had one window, a hot plate, a bathroom the size of a closet. Evelyn slept on an air mattress. Jack took the futon. She made him get a job. Harvest starts in 2 weeks. Torres Vineyard pays $18 an hour, cash. Jack lasted 3 days. Blisters, back pain, hungover from cheap tequila, quit. Evelyn didn't blink. Libraries hiring, shelving books, $16.50 an hour. He took it. Wore Tom's old work boots. Learned to alphabetize. Learned to apologize to Mrs. Gutierrez when he misshelved Moby Dick under G. January. Rain slashed the hills. Evelyn took Jack to First Napa Bank. Tom left something, said to open it together. Box 212. The teller handed over a metal case. Inside, a bottle of 1985 Harper & Sons Cabernet, Tom's first vintage, a ledger, handwritten, every Vine purchase since 1983. A second letter. "Jack, if you're reading this, you've either earned it or lost everything. Either way, the land doesn't care. It only asks, what will you plant?" Clause. To inherit, you must work 1 full harvest, dawn to dusk, no shortcuts. Then and only then does the trust open. Love, Dad. Jack's hands shook. I sold his life's work for bottle service. Evelyn said nothing, just handed him the bottle. Drink it when you're ready. August, 104 degrees. Jack woke at 4 a.m., drove the Corolla to Torres Vineyard, learned to spot botrytis, learned to carry 50-pound lugs without spilling, learned the names of the Mexican crew. Lupe, who'd worked Napa since '92, Miguel, who sent money home to Oaxaca, Rosa, who sang Selena while pruning. He lost 20 pounds, gained calluses, stopped checking his phone. One night, after 14 hours in the fields, he found Evelyn on the studio's tiny porch, drinking tea. "Mom," he said, voice raw, "I get it now. The cottage wasn't just a house. It was roots." She nodded. "Roots don't grow in concrete, Jack." October, harvest moon. The Torres crew crushed the last grapes.
Jack's hands were stained purple to the wrists. Evelyn drove him to the cottage. Their cottage. The for sale sign was gone. The Mustang sat in the driveway, polished to a mirror. Inside, Margaret Cho waited with a folder. Jack Harper, you fulfilled the clause. 1 full harvest. Verified by Mr. Torres himself. She slid the trust documents across the table. 120 acres, Harper & Sons Winery, $6.4 million in trust, the cottage, deeded to Evelyn, but with a lifelong lease for Jack, if he manages the winery for 5 years. Jack stared. You owned it all? The whole time? Evelyn poured 3 glasses of the 1985 Cabernet. I owned the land, Jack. You owned the lesson. He cried then. Not pretty. Sobs that shook his whole frame. Evelyn held him like he was 5 again, scraped knee and all. 5 years later, Harper & Sons Winery released its first vintage under Jack's label, Roots and Redemption, a Cabernet blend aged in oak Tom had bought in '89. Sold out in 48 hours. The cottage became a guest house for apprentices, kids from foster care, learning viticulture. Jack taught them to drive the Mustang, taught them to prune, taught them Tom's mantra, the vine doesn't care who you were, only what you'll become. Evelyn, 76, still pruned roses, still took the bus to the farmer's market, still wore Tom's flannel. One Sunday, she and Jack sat on the porch, watching the sun sink into the vineyards. Think Dad's proud? Jack asked. Evelyn smiled, raised her glass. He's in the dirt, Jack, and the dirt doesn't lie. They clinked, drank. The wine tasted like forgiveness.